Hello YouTube readers, welcome to a brief but juicy mid-year book tag. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through what have been my favorite books so far in 2025, which ones I would not recommend you guys read, and leaving the best for last, we are going to rave over our fictional crushes and kind of review those tear-inducing moments in the books we have read so far. A few of the facts that I can share with you guys so far in 2025, I had a goal of reading 60 books by the end of the year. I am right now in book 23, so we are slowly but surely getting there. Since this is just a 6-month review, I'm not going to do like my 5 favorite books because I feel like I have not read as many to make a decision like that. So I'll try to share with you my 3 favorite books so far. To be fair, I must disclose that I actually started reading or rereading the Imperium series at the beginning of the year. So I had already read Fourth Wing and Iron Flame last year, but I reread them again because obviously Onyx Storm was coming up this year, so I had to like get back into the story, and thank goodness I did, because even doing that I was so lost on some stuff with Onyx Storm, but that's another story. So okay, here goes. I think I already spoiled it, but place number 1 goes to Onyx Storm because why wouldn't it? It was simply incredible. I loved it. The pace of it was so engaging. Just the fact that she continued the story, added more mystery into it, gave me a heart attack a couple of times because oh my goodness, like she was this close to doing something very wrong to some of my favorite characters. But no spoilers, I just gotta say you have to read it if you haven't. The whole series is amazing. So that's obviously number 1. Second place goes to one of my favorite authors of all time, and this is Christine Hanna for her book titled The Women. Incredible. I was coming into it with high expectations. I had put it off for a long time, but once I sat down and read it, I was bawling just because she opens my eyes so much to history. And even though this is fictional history, it's very intriguing to dig and like know what the real story was behind most of the stories that she writes, if that makes sense. I don't know. So that one absolutely recommend. It's really sad and very realistic, so it's not one of those fairy tale books at all. Pretty much like the same with every fictional history book, but absolutely a must. It was really good. And third place, I had a debate with this because I really liked other books I read, which I'm going to explain in a little bit, but I don't think they deserve like being on the top 3 just because of complexity of writing, topic. Some of them, most of the ones I've read so far are very contemporary romance. So, you know, I feel like those are not jokes, but not real literature that I can rate. I don't know if that makes sense either. So after all of that, third place actually goes to Yellowface by Rebecca Kuang. I was not expecting the twists in this book. It was kind of heavy to read it because the main character was detestable. Like, I liked the fact that she twisted it so much that you did not like the main character. Not spoiling it, just letting you know like what the lines of the book are. The fact that the topic of it was a writer in the world of a writer and editor and all of that, I thought that was really awesome. The development of it too. The ending was a bit not confusing, but it made you think, right? And it definitely leaves it in like a cliffhanger. So that was interesting. I thought that it was a creative, very, very creative way of writing a book, which funnily enough made me mistrust every author from there on out just because of the topic of it. I don't want to expand more on it because I don't want to spoil it for you, but I think it's a really good read, and I am very curious about reading other works from her, like Babel, I think that's one of her titles, or The Poppy War, which it's kind of lengthy, so I might not go that way, but still, I think it's worth a shot. Now that we went over my favorite books, I want to tell you about the one I least liked, and this one, it's actually The Handmaid's Tale. I'm sorry, but no, I didn't like it at all. It was very dark, it was very ugly. It's obviously like dystopian and futuristic, but I didn't like it. It was horrible. I think the interesting part of it was like because of my beliefs in the Bible and stuff, obviously they took a lot of that to make the book what it is, and it has an interesting point of view for sure, but the story on its own, it's very dark. The fact that it doesn't have an ending, it's even worse. I hate reading like the epilogue of it, both of that one or the Testaments, like the sequel of it. So I read it because I started it, but honestly I wouldn't read it again. I kind of watched the series on Disney Plus, but it's not my favorite either. I think I even like the series more than the book, which is not good because you know me, I'm always loving the book over whatever they do in TV, so that gives you an idea of how much I didn't like the book. It's an unpopular opinion, I think, because I've heard a lot of good reviews about it, but I personally didn't like it. It was not my cup of tea. And along with my favorite books, of course, I want to acknowledge a few of my favorite writers or authors so far. Of course, we have Rebecca Yarros. She is my favorite. I am going to hunt her down though and make her give me answers, because the cliffhanger that she left in Onyx's Storm is driving me insane. There's not a day that goes by without me thinking about what's going to happen in the rest of the series, and she better make it a good one or I'm going to lose it. Then we have Christine Hanna. Incredible. I feel like she is a true artist. The way that she writes, the way that she can create characters that even though they're fictional, they are described in such a way that I feel they're real. Like they must have been real at some point or other, and the events around which they develop are real stuff, and a lot of people were included in that, so there really is a big chance that they were actually real. I don't even know that that makes sense, but it's the way I think about it. Like those characters, there's no way they are fiction. So Christine Hanna will forever be one of my favorites. And adding a new author to my list of favorite authors, we have Emily Henry. This year I began reading her books because obviously there was a big hype about them. They were a big deal like in Pinterest and stuff, and honestly at first I thought it was only because of the book covers, because whoever the designer is for that is really good, because they made it very aesthetic, very fresh and very chill vibe. I don't know, I really liked the covers, but I was very skeptical about trying her books because I'd made that mistake with Colleen Hoover, and honestly she's one of my least favorite authors. There's only a handful of books I like from her, so I tried Emily Henry's pen, and I think I began by reading Funny Story, and I immediately loved it. So I started reading Funny Story. I already went through People We Meet on Vacation, Happy Place, and I'm currently on 70% of Big Great Beautiful Life or something like that, her latest release, and I am really liking it. I have like a conflict of interest with this writer because I love her descriptions. Her settings are so well described, and I'm a person who hates reading descriptions. That's why I barely got through the Lord of the Rings, because everything is description, right? That's a really bad example, but usually I like it when there's action. I like it when they barely describe stuff, but mostly you can imagine it just because the action is right there. But this one, I could just sit down and read it, and I could picture myself in the house, in the city. Funnily enough, she writes a lot about places I've been to. Like just this past month I was in Indiana, and all of her books are based in Indiana, so that's such a coincidence, and I thought it was so fun. And like I can prove that the way she's describing it, it's the real thing. It's very American, if I may say so. Like obviously it's that type of aesthetic and chill and, you know, the American dream type thing, but it's still really fun to read because it's super comfortable and chill, so that is very entertaining. So I don't really love her couples or like her pairings, just because they're not, I don't know how to describe it, but it just feels wrong, right? Like the only one I felt was normal was the one in Happy Place, because it's the girl and her ex-fiance and like their story of getting back together or whatever. But in the other books, especially Funny Story, if you read it, you'll understand, I hope, that couple thing, it's very weird. I don't know, it just doesn't feel comfortable to me, doesn't feel supernatural, so I guess that's why I didn't love it. Even in this last one I'm reading, the development of their romance, it's a little spontaneous, so I felt like it was a bit of insta love in there, which I'm not a fan of, but the description again of the whole thing and the topics is very cozy. So she's still a really great author, and I'm very happy to have started reading books from her this year. And aside from reading new books, obviously I did a few reruns or rereads, if I may, of books that I've already read, but somehow I cannot let them go. And as C.S. Lewis once said, you haven't read a book unless you've read it more than once. I am a firm believer in that, and because of that, this year I reread The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini, which I think it's the most amazing, heartbreaking, and frustrating story in the planet. It's so good, and the second time that I read it, it was even better, so that was good. I read The Great Divorce by C.S. Lewis. Again, very impactful, way more meaningful than the second time I read it. And The Great Alone by Christine Hanna. I had read this one a long time ago. I actually bought it and had it with me, but I hadn't read it again. And I read it again, and it makes so much more sense now, and it was just so impactful. And the fact that I read it after reading The Women, it felt like they were connected, so it was mind-blowing. Totally recommend. One book that I didn't mention among my favorites, because again, I don't think it should be that high, but I still loved it, was Sunrise of the Reaping. Come on, people. Susan Collins just gave us a new book, and it didn't disappoint. I am blown away by her ability to just continue writing right where she took off, because this book had the same air, like the same mood as the Hunger Games trilogy had, and it was insane reading about Haymitch's story. And as always, we were expecting that it was gonna be heartbreaking, and it was, but it was such a refreshing piece of writing. I always love it when she comes up with new books, because since I was younger, she's been the greatest of them all. And lastly, we arrive at our favorite part, where we get to talk about our fictional crushes. This is exciting because, you know, for a girl that lives in the countryside and there's not much drama going on, I'm just kidding, and it's fun to read and kind of fantasize sometimes about fictional characters. Most of the authors I've read so far did an amazing job. So let's see, I don't know that I want to rate them. I'm just gonna tell you about what my crushes have been so far. I think earliest in the year I read this book called Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan, which I know it's a very contemporary, a very light piece of writing. I know for a fact a lot of people didn't like this book. I loved it. It's my guilty pleasure. It was so good and so cute, obviously so cheesy, but it was really nice. And Archer obviously is a character that I am very in love with. He's just so sad, not in a pathetic way. I've started to notice that some girl writers start making their male characters a little bit pathetic, in that they have a little bit of self-pity and like they're scared about stuff, and I don't know, like made them seem vulnerable. I guess that's their aim, but I don't really love that. You know, my guys have to be guys, so this one was like that. Like, he was sad because of what happened to him, which was super traumatic, but he still maintained like his strength, and he's still super kind, and the fact that they only speak in sign language, I don't know, it's certainly weird, but I think he was an amazing character. So that's one of my crushes. After that, I think I have two from Knock 'Em Out series by Lucy Score. I had read Things We Never Got Over a long time ago. I actually read it twice already, so obviously Knox is one of my favorite characters, because classic country boy from a small town, rich, you know, the whole deal. But after that, I finished reading the series this year, and I read Things We Left Behind, and then Lucian, the guy in the book, he's really cool. He's got a lot of issues, but he's so funny. Like, they describe him as such a serious person that when he does funny stuff, it's extra funny. So I don't know, I love him. And of course, leaving the best for last, there is no debate that Satan will always and forever be our favorite male character, just because he's got the whole package, literally. So we can leave that at that. But I must say that I particularly enjoyed his character in Onyx Storm because, well, I'm kind of getting into a weird area here, but I hate when in books they describe physical closeness, because it's horrible to have to read that. So I skim through all of that and jump over pieces, or sometimes chapters of books, which to me is very disgusting and very degrading, that nowadays that is what sells. But anyway, in Onyx Storm, I think there were maybe a couple of times in which they almost did something, but the rest of it, it was just like closeness as a couple. Like, they were talking, they were just hanging out, and the fact that he insinuated marriage so much throughout the book, to me was the cherry on top of the cake, because it shows like commitment, it shows like a real character, you know, like he's committed. It's not something that if she gets angry in the next chapter, they're going to split up and that's it. Like, it gives me surety that the character or the couple is going to continue. I have no idea what I'm saying, but hopefully you understand if you've read it too. Alright, you guys, I have rambled here for quite a while. I said at the beginning this was going to be a brief book tag. I don't know that it was brief, but I surely had a lot of fun. I just love sitting down and scheming and diagramming all the books I've read, what I thought about them, the ratings, everything. To me, it's a whole world, and I'm so happy I get to share it with you guys. I hope that you also had time to read some books, not necessarily a lot of them. I know for a fact there's people that read like 50 books already this year, and you are my heroes because I have no idea how you do that. Like, I cannot read that fast ever. But I must say these 6 months have been very enjoyable. Very few books have I read that I thought they were a waste of time, so I think that's better. Like, I feel I'm getting better at screening which books are worth my time, and so far I've had a lot of great experiences, adventures in my fictional world, and I can't wait for the next 6 months because I still have a really big to be read pile. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and if you found some of my opinions particularly off, or if you agreed with some of my favorite books, authors, do make sure to leave your comments below and share with me whichever recommendations you have. If you read something you really liked in these 6 months and I didn't mention it, comment it because I want to read that. Thank you guys, have a good one, bye!